welcome to Mia Horror Stories. To make it easier on your eyes, this video plays against a black screen, so you can close your eyes, get comfortable, and let the story take over. But don't relax too much, the ending might just catch you off guard. Stay with me until the very last word. The first time it happened, I was already halfway out of sleep and convinced my phone had buzzed. Not the clean, polite vibration of a text, more like a trapped insect in a glass, that rapid stuttering against wood. My nightstand creaked once under the tiny tremor. The sound was so specific it pulled me up by the throat, not with fear exactly, more with irritation. Like when a smoke alarm chirps at 2:00 a.m., and you know you'll be the one on a chair with a broom handle, cursing. I blinked at the darkness. A smear of sodium streetlight pressed through the blinds. The air smelled faintly of dish soap from the kitchen and the sour warmth of the radiator. Somewhere below us, a car door thumped shut. In our bedroom, the only moving thing was the little red LED on the router across the hall, winking like it had an opinion. Then the vibration stopped. I lay still, listening for it to come back, because that's what your brain does with weirdness. It pokes it with a stick to see if it's still alive. "Eli," I whispered. A breath beside me shifted. Eli's voice was thick, the kind of half-syllable you make when you're trying to stay asleep and be a supportive partner at the same time. "Did you feel that, my phone?" Eli rolled onto his back with a sigh that made the mattress complain. The silhouette of his arm moved toward his side of the bed. "Your phone's on silent." I know. I reached blindly for it anyway, fingers sliding over the cool rectangle. The screen was dark. No notifications. No missed calls. The time glowed in pale numbers when I tapped. 12:07 a.m. Maybe the building did its usual settling. Maybe the radiator kicked. Maybe I dreamed it. That was the comfort of things being explainable. You could fold them away. I set the phone back, careful, as if it might buzz again out of spite. My gaze drifted to the window without me deciding to. It was a habit, like checking a rearview mirror even when you're not changing lanes. The blinds were down, slats tilted closed, but not perfectly. They never were. There was always that narrow gap near the pull cord where the streetlight could sneak in and paint a thin line across the wall. In that line, dust floated. Tiny, lazy spirals. Everything looked normal enough that my chest loosened a fraction. Then I heard it. Not a bang, not footsteps. A soft, brief sound that could have been a glove brushing fabric, a fingertip on painted wood. Something sliding, stopping, sliding again. Outside the window, Eli's breathing steadied beside me, already drifting. I held my own breath and listened harder, which is another thing the brain does. It thinks concentration is control. Nothing. I was about to let it go when the sound came again, a little higher this time, like it had moved. A tiny scrape, a pause, and then, unmistakably, a faint click that made my stomach go tight. The pull cord for the blinds, its plastic toggle, tapped the window glass. It wasn't dramatic. It was stupidly small. It was the kind of noise you'd ignore if you were standing at the sink and the TV was on. But wasn't supposed to move. I eased my hand off the phone and onto the edge of the mattress, preparing to sit up. Eli made a sleepy noise like a protest and turned his face into the pillow. "Eli," I said again, slightly louder. My voice sounded too bright in the dark, like it didn't belong here. "Wake up." "What?" he mumbled, more statement than question. "Do you hear that?" A pause. Eli's breathing hitched in that annoyed way. Then he lifted his head. "Hear what?" Another tap. Soft. The plastic toggle kissing glass. Eli went still. Not scared, not yet. Just attentive. "Okay," he said, voice clear now, the sleep falling away. "That's weird. I'm not imagining it. I didn't say you were." He pushed himself up on one elbow. His hair was crushed in a direction that made him look like a kid. The faint glow of the digital clock on the dresser outlined his cheekbone. We listened. There was a drafty hush in the room, the kind that comes from old window frames and winter being ambitious. The radiator hissed once, settling. Somewhere down the hall, one of our neighbors' pipes knocked. Then scrape, tap. Eli slid out of bed in one smooth motion that told me he'd done this before. In other apartments, other nights, responding to a mysterious sound with the stubborn confidence of someone who believes problems are mostly physical. "Probably the cords hitting because of a draft," he whispered, as if sound carried farther at night. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. That explanation fit neatly. Draft equals movement. Movement equals tap. The universe still made sense. Eli padded across the hardwood, bare feet silent, except for a faint squeak near the doorway where a board always complained. He stopped at the window. I stayed in bed, sitting up, sheet pulled to my chest, because that was my private flaw. I hated being the first one to check. I'd always been that way. Even as a kid, I'd send my brother to see what the noise downstairs was, then pretend I didn't care. Eli reached toward the blinds. "Don't," I said too quickly. He paused, hand hovering. "Why?" "I don't know, just wait." Another tap, more insistent, like the plastic toggle had found a rhythm. Eli leaned in, peering at the slats, looking for gaps. "If it's a draft, we can fix it. It's annoying." "It's after midnight," I said, and immediately hated how that sounded, like I was quoting a superstition I didn't believe in. Eli turned his head slightly, enough that I could see the faintest glint of his eye in the streetlight seep. "Are you doing that thing where your brain decides the time makes it scarier?" I swallowed. The thing was, yes, time did that to me. Midnight was when normal sounds turned into messages. "I'm just tired," I said, "and it's weird." Eli's phone buzzed once on the windowsill where he'd left it earlier, charging. It was a bright, sudden sound in the quiet. Eli glanced at it automatically. His screen lit up, throwing a quick wash of white across the blinds. The notification banner was too small for me to read from the bed, but Eli's posture changed in a subtle way. Not alarmed, more like focused. "What is it?" I asked. "Neighbor group chat," he said, voice careful. "From Sonia." The name made my stomach dip, because Sonia didn't text late. Sonia upstairs was a good morning person and a sorry to bother you person. And I left muffins outside your door person. Sonia late night texting meant something had broken. Eli's thumb moved. The screen brightness flared again, briefly illuminating his hand. Sonia says, he squinted. She says, is anyone else hearing something outside? Like someone messing with the windows. My mouth went dry. A draft didn't message the neighbor group chat. Eli looked back at the blinds. The cord tapped again, almost politely, as if acknowledging it had been discussed. I'm going to take a quick look, Eli said, and there it was, his default setting. Inspect, solve, move on. Eli, I whispered, maybe we just don't. He turned toward me fully now, and I could see his face in the thin light. Calm, slightly amused, a little irritated at being awake. We're on the second floor, and the street's right there. If someone's messing around, we should know. I wanted to tell him about my private fear, the one I never framed as fear because it sounded childish. That attention invites escalation. That if you acknowledge the wrong person at the wrong moment, you become a story they keep telling. But I didn't want to be the person who made Eli roll his eyes. The tapping stopped. That was worse, somehow, because it felt like a response. Eli's hand closed around the blind cord. The plastic toggle was warm from being handled so often. He held it still. No movement, no draft. From somewhere outside, down on the street, a low laugh drifted up, then cut off sharply, as if someone had covered their mouth. Eli's eyes flicked to the gap near the pull cord. He hesitated just a fraction. Okay, he said softly. That's not wind. I stared at him, heart thudding in a way that felt too loud. The room smelled suddenly sharp, like metal and old paint. Eli didn't pull the blinds up. He didn't open them. He just stood there, hand still on the cord, listening. His phone buzzed again. Another message. Eli glanced down. Sonia says, he swallowed, and the word that followed came out slower, heavier. She says she saw someone in the courtyard, looking up. He looked back at the window. Then, very carefully, Eli lifted his other hand toward the slats, as if he could adjust them without revealing anything. I sat up straighter, sheet slipping from my chest. Eli, I said, and my voice didn't feel like mine. Don't look out. He stopped with his fingers an inch from the blinds, frozen between curiosity and caution. The choice was right there, thin as the gap between slats. We could leave them closed, lock ourselves into ignorance and wait for morning, and pretend the world couldn't touch us through glass. Or we could look, and once you look, you can't unknow what's outside. Eli didn't look out the window. That surprised me more than the tapping. He lowered his hand slowly, like the blinds might spook if he moved too fast. The room felt tighter with him standing there, a solid shape between me and the glass. His phone buzzed again, vibrating against the sill with a dry insect sound that made my shoulders jump. I'm calling the building manager, he said quietly. At midnight, I whispered. She told us to call if anything weird happens. Remember, after the bike thefts, he already had the phone to his ear. It rang once, twice, then flipped to voicemail. Eli didn't bother leaving a message. He hung up and exhaled through his nose. Outside, something shifted. Not a footstep exactly, more like weight being redistributed. The courtyard had that echoing quality old apartment buildings get, where sounds bounce off brick and come back slightly warped. You can tell yourself it's nothing and still feel watched. Another message chimed. Eli glanced down. Sonia again. I slid out of bed and crossed the room, stopping a few feet behind him. The floor was cold enough to bite. What does she say? She says the guy moved closer to the building, that she thinks he's checking doors. My throat tightened. Doors. Ground floor, probably. Eli rubbed his forehead with his free hand. She's freaking out. A scrape came from the window frame, longer this time, deliberate. Something dragged lightly along the painted wood, then stopped. That's not the wind, I said, unnecessarily. Eli nodded once. Okay, new plan. He turned to face me, voice low and steady in that way he used when he was trying to be reassuring. We call the police. Non-emergency. Is this non-emergency? I asked, hatting the way my voice wobbled. It's someone lurking, not breaking in. Yet, he emphasized the last word like a promise he intended to keep. He dialed. The phone rang longer this time. While we waited, I found myself staring at the tiny gap in the blinds again. My chest tightened with the urge to look, just to know. Not knowing felt like hovering over a drop without seeing how far down it went. The operator answered. Eli explained location, noises, neighbor reports. He kept it factual, stripped of panic. I admired that about him, even as a part of me resented it. Calm made things feel manageable. Panic made them honest. Yes, Eli said into the phone. Second floor. No, we haven't seen him directly. We hear he paused, listening. The scraping stopped. Silence rushed in to fill the space it left, thick and expectant. I could hear my own breathing too clearly. Hold on, Eli said to the operator. He muted the phone and turned to me. It stopped. That's not good, I said. That's worse. Agreed, he unmuted. Yes, sorry. The noise just stopped. We're staying inside. The operator's voice murmured through the speaker, too soft for me to catch the words. Eli nodded along, jaw tight. Outside, a low thud sounded from somewhere below, followed by a muffled curse. Human. Definitely human. My stomach dropped. Eli straightened. Did you hear that? Yes. That was downstairs. He pulled the phone away from his ear again. I'm going to check the hallway camera feed. The building had installed cheap security cameras after a string of package thefts. The feed was accessible through an app that worked most of the time. Eli crossed to the dresser and opened his laptop, fingers moving quickly. I hovered near his shoulder, trying not to crowd him, trying not to think about how exposed the ground floor apartments were. The app loaded slowly, buffering on a spinning icon that made my pulse tick up with every rotation. Come on, Eli muttered. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from Sonia, all caps this time. He's at the back door. I can hear HIM trying the handle. I shoved the phone toward Eli. He read it, swore under his breath. He's trying to get in, I said, the words tasting wrong. The camera feed finally snapped into focus. Grainy black and white footage of the back entrance filled the screen. The door shook slightly, the handle jiggling in short, impatient bursts. Then a figure stepped into frame. He wasn't dramatic looking. That was the worst part. No mask, no weapon visible, just a man in a dark hoodie, hood down, hair cropped short. He leaned in close to the door, peering through the glass, then tried the handle again, harder this time. "Jesus," Eli breathed. "He looks normal," I said. "Most people do." The operator was still on the line, her voice now sharper, more directive. Eli relayed what we were seeing. She said officers were en route, ETA unclear. The city at night was a patchwork of priorities. On the screen, the man stepped back from the door and tilted his head, listening. For a horrible second, I thought he was listening to us through the walls. Then he looked up, not at our window, higher, towards Sonia's floor. I felt a cold, sinking certainty. He knows someone's home. Eli's phone chimed again. "Sonia, I'm in my bathroom. He's knocking now." On the feed, the man moved out of frame. The back door rattled once more, then stilled. "He's inside," I whispered. "No," Eli said quickly. "The door's locked." "He can't." He cut himself off as the feed switched cameras automatically, cycling to the interior stairwell. The man appeared again, climbing the stairs. My heart hammered. How did he get in? "The front door," Eli said. "Someone must have buzzed him." The operator's voice crackled. "Sir, do you know which floor he's heading to?" Eli hesitated, eyes flicking to me. It was a small pause, but it felt loaded. If we told them Sonia was alone upstairs, would that make it worse? If we didn't, would it make us responsible? "Third floor," Eli said finally. On the screen, the man stopped on the second floor landing. "Our floor." He turned slowly, as if orienting himself, then walked down the hall, toward our apartment. I backed away from the window, instinctively, bumping into the bed. "Eli." "I see him," Eli said, voice flat. "Stay quiet." The footsteps outside our door were soft, unhurried. The kind of steps someone takes when they're not afraid of being caught. A shadow passed beneath the doorframe, blocking the hall light for a second. Then a knock, not loud, not violent. 3 measured taps with knuckles. "Police," a man's voice called, calm and practiced. "Open up." Every nerve in my body screamed no. I grabbed Eli's arm, fingers digging in. "That's not the police," I whispered. Eli swallowed. His private flaw, his need to verify, to see, to confirm, was written all over his face. He moved toward the door anyway, slow, deliberate. "I'm not opening it," he said, more to himself than to me. "I'm checking the peephole." My chest tightened. Attention invites escalation. I'd known it. I'd always known it. Eli leaned in, eye to the peephole. Outside, the man's shadow shifted closer to the door. "Sir," the voice said again, closer now. "We just need to talk." Eli stiffened. "There's something wrong," he whispered. "He's smiling." Before I could pull him back, the door handle rattled violently, metal clanging against metal. "Open the door," the man said. No pretense left in his voice now. From upstairs, Sonia screamed, and somewhere below us, a siren wailed, too far away to matter yet. Eli stumbled back from the door, like he'd touched something hot. "He's not police," he said, unnecessarily, because the man outside had already proven that by yanking the handle again, harder this time. The metal rang through the apartment, sharp and ugly. "Police don't smile like that," Eli added, voice shaking now. That was new. I dragged him away from the door by his sleeve, pulling him toward the kitchen where the walls were thicker, where there was no glass. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like motion sickness. "Bathroom," I whispered. "Now." Another knock. Not polite anymore. Knuckles slamming flat, palm heavy against the wood. The doorframe creaked in protest. "Open up," the man barked. Eli shook his head like he was trying to clear water from his ears. "We need to help Sonia." That sentence cracked something open inside me. My fear, instinct to shrink and wait, collided headfirst with the reality of someone else paying for our caution. "She's upstairs," I said. "We can't just..." A loud bang cut me off. Not from our door, from above us. Sonia screamed again. A raw, animal sound that scraped my nerves bare. Eli was already moving. He grabbed his keys from the hook by the door, the metal clinking too loudly. I caught his wrist. "Eli, if we open this..." "He's not at our door anymore," Eli said. He pressed his ear to the wall, then to the door. The hallway was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. The camera feed on the laptop flickered. I darted to it, fingers shaking as I dragged the cursor. The stairwell view showed the man halfway up the next flight, moving fast now, 2 steps at a time. "He's going to her," I said. Eli swore. Okay. We go out the fire escape." The fire escape was in the kitchen, a narrow window that opened onto a rusted metal ladder bolted to the back of the building. It wasn't ideal, but it bypassed the hall and connected to Sonia's floor. Eli shoved the kitchen window open. Cold air slapped my face, carrying the smell of damp brick and garbage bins. The ladder rattled softly in the wind. "Go," Eli said. "I hate ladders," I said, which felt like the stupidest possible thing to say. "I know," he said. "I'll be right behind you." That was my private flaw laid bare. Heights froze me. Something about trusting my weight to narrow rungs made my legs turn traitorous. Another crash upstairs, wood splintering this time. I swung one leg out, then the other, hands gripping the icy metal. The ladder swayed slightly, a normal thing, but my brain translated it as "you will fall." I forced myself down one rung, then another. From above, a door slammed. Sonia's voice shouted something I couldn't make out, words dissolving into panic. Eli climbed out after me, the ladder protesting under our combined weight. Halfway down, my foot slipped on frost. My knee slammed into a rung, pain flaring white-hot. "Shit," I gasped. "You okay?" Eli whispered. "Keep going," I hissed through clenched teeth. We reached the small landing level with Sonia's apartment. Eli pulled himself over first, then grabbed my arm and hauled me up. My knee throbbed, already stiffening. We crept along the narrow metal walkway towards Sonia's window. The building's brick wall loomed close, trapping sound. Somewhere below, a dumpster lid banged in the wind, a hollow, booming noise that made me flinch. A shadow moved behind Sonia's curtain. "Sonia," Eli whispered, tapping softly on the glass. "It's us." The shadow jerked. The curtain twitched. "Don't open the door," she hissed through the glass, face pale and streaked with tears when she pulled the curtain back an inch. "He's inside." "We know," I said. "Bathroom." She nodded frantically. "He broke the bedroom door. I locked myself in here." A heavy thud echoed from inside her apartment, followed by the unmistakable sound of furniture being shoved aside. "He's looking for me," she whispered. Eli tested the window. Locked. "Can you open it?" he asked. "I think so." Sonia fumbled with the latch, hands shaking. The window stuck, swollen from winter damp. She shoved harder. Inside the apartment, footsteps approached. Slow, deliberate. "I can't," Sonia whispered, panic tipping her voice toward hysteria. Eli wedged his fingers under the frame and pulled. The wood groaned. The window budged an inch. Footsteps closer now. A shadow passed beneath the bathroom door inside. "Police are coming," I blurted, hoping it was true enough to matter. "Just keep." The bathroom door handle rattled violently. Sonia screamed. Eli heaved. The window flew open with a crack that sounded like a gunshot in the tight space. Cold air rushed out, carrying the sharp smell of cleaning chemicals and fierce sweat. "Sonia now," Eli said. She scrambled toward the window, climbing awkwardly over the sill. Her foot slipped, scraping skin. She cried out, but kept moving. Inside, something crashed into the bathroom door. Wood splintered. Sonia tumbled onto the fire escape landing, sobbing. Eli grabbed her under the arms, hauling her fully out just as the bathroom door burst inward behind her. A man filled the doorway. Up close, he looked worse. Eyes too bright. A smear of blood on his knuckles that I realized, with a sick jolt, was Sonia's. He stared at us for a second, breathing hard. Then he laughed a short, incredulous bark. "There you are," he said. He lunged for the window. Eli shoved Sonia behind him and kicked at the man's hands as they came through the opening. Fingers scraped metal, skin tearing. The man howled, more angry than hurt. I grabbed the window frame and slammed it down as hard as I could. The glass rattled. The latch didn't catch. The man slammed his shoulder against it from inside. Again. The window bowed inward, the frame cracking. "We can't hold this," Eli said, breathless. Below us, the siren wailed again, closer now, but still not here. Then from the courtyard, a shout rose. "Police, show me your hands." The man froze. For one hopeful second, I thought it was over. Then the voice shouted again, closer, echoing wrong against the brick. And I realized, with a sick twist, that it wasn't authoritative enough. Too loud, too eager. The man's mouth curled into a grin. "Nice try," he said. A door somewhere below slammed. Footsteps pounded on the stairs, real ones this time. Heavier, multiple. The man yanked back from the window and ran. "Where he going?" Sonia sobbed. Eli leaned over the railing, peering down despite himself. Down, toward the front. We heard shouting now, real panic in it. A crash, glass breaking. And then, from the hallway behind us, the one connecting Sonia's apartment to the stairwell, a door creaked open. A second figure stepped out. Not the same man. This one held a crowbar. Eli's face drained of color. We're trapped. Behind us, the crowbar man blocking the walkway to Sonia's apartment door. Below us, the ladder swaying slick with frost. In front of us, open air. There was no way back inside without passing someone dangerous. There was no safe way down, and the fire escape groaned under our weight. A tired sound, like it had been waiting years to give up. The fire escape shrieked, not loud, metal on metal. A long, complaining whine that traveled through my teeth and into my skull. The sound came when the second man took a step forward, crowbar dangling loose in his hand, like he wasn't even worried about dropping it. Easy, Eli said, palms up. His voice had gone calm in a way that scared me more than shouting. We don't want trouble. The crowbar man laughed under his breath. He was older than the first 40s, maybe. Balding. A work jacket with a logo stitched over the chest I couldn't quite read in the dark. Someone who blended. Someone you'd hold a door for. Behind the cracked bathroom window, glass crunched. The first man reappeared, blood on his knuckles darker now, slick. He leaned out just far enough to see us pinned between metal and air. Don't let them drop, he said casually, like we were furniture. Sonia whimpered and grabbed my sleeve. Her hand was shaking so badly it rattled my bones. The ladder swayed again. Frost glittered on the rungs, 20 feet down to concrete. Eli's eyes flicked to it anyway. I knew what he was thinking. Calculating weight, angles, odds. His flaw, the need to verify, to solve, was still there, even now. Phones, the crowbar man said. Slide him over. No, Eli said, immediate, sharp. The crowbar rose an inch. Okay, I said too fast. Okay, just don't push anyone. I reached for my pocket. Eli shot me a look, but he didn't stop me. I slid my phone across the metal grate with my foot. It clattered, skidded, stopped near the crowbar man's boot. Sonia did the same. Her phone bounced once and fell through the gap between bars. We all watched it drop. The little sound it made when it hit, plastic against concrete, felt final. The crowbar man scowled. You stupid. A siren wailed again. This one different. Doppler shifted, closer, real. The first man swore. They're actually coming. Then move, the crowbar man snapped. He lunged not at us, but at Eli. The fire escape jerked violently as Eli twisted away. The crowbar slammed down where his hand had been, sparks flying. Eli grunted, staggered, and his foot slipped on the frost. I grabbed him without thinking. My bad knee screamed as it took his weight. We both went down hard, metal biting into skin. The crowbar came up again. I reached for the first thing my hand closed around, the loose end of the blind pull cord I'd stuffed in my pocket without realizing it. Habit more than logic. Plastic toggle. Thin nylon line. I wrapped it around the crowbar man's wrist and yanked. It wasn't strong. It wasn't heroic, but it surprised him. The crowbar clanged against the railing, and slipped free, skittering toward the edge. The first man shouted something from the window and lunged out, half climbing, half falling onto the escape. The added weight made the whole structure dip. A bolt gave way with a sound like a gunshot. The ladder tore, loose from the wall at the bottom. Metal screamed. Sonia shrieked. The fire escape tilted outward, slow at first, then faster. Gravity finally winning an argument it had been having all night. "Hold on," Eli shouted, grabbing the railing with both hands. The crowbar man lost his footing and slammed into me. The air punched out of my lungs. We hit the bars together. My knee buckled with a wet, nauseating pop. I screamed. I couldn't stop myself. The first man grabbed for the window frame as the escape dropped. His fingers slipped on blood. He fell backward, hitting the railing hard enough to knock the breath from him. For one suspended second, we were all balanced on a slanted cage of rust and bad decisions. Then the remaining bolts tore free. The fire escape went. We slid, not a clean fall. A grinding, tearing descent, metal ripping past brick, bodies banging against rails. I hit the side hard enough to see white. Eli hit harder, shoulder first, his grip finally failing. Sonia vanished from my sight, dropping out of frame with a sound I still hear when it's quiet. The first man screamed all the way down. We hit the dumpster. The impact folded the lid inward with a concussive boom. Garbage exploded up around us, wet cardboard, sour food, glass. Pain flared everywhere at once, too big to sort. I lay there, stunned, breath hitching. The world narrowed to smell and ringing. Sirens screamed, close now, tires skidded. "Don't move," someone shouted. A real voice this time, authority with weight behind it. Hands grabbed me, careful but firm, rolling me onto my back. A flashlight burned my eyes. Eli was on the ground a few feet away, not moving. Blood ran down his temple, dark against pale skin. I tried to sit up. My knee refused. I sobbed instead, a broken sound I didn't recognize as my own. They pulled the first man out from under twisted metal, screaming and cursing, one leg bent wrong. The crowbar man didn't get up at all. A sheet went over him quickly. Sonia was alive. They said it twice before it stuck. Alive but unconscious, broken ankle, cracked ribs. Eli groaned when they loaded him onto the stretcher. That sound saved me. I held onto it like a rope. As they wheeled him away, he found my hand and squeezed once. Weak, real. "I shouldn't have looked," he whispered. I shook my head, tears blurring everything. I shouldn't have frozen. The street filled with red and blue. Neighbors pressed back behind tape. Someone handed me a blanket that smelled like plastic and smoke. Above us, the windows were dark, blinds still crooked. One pull cord dangled, swaying gently in the night breeze. Resolved, but not gone. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and warm plastic. A machine hummed softly at my left, measuring something I didn't feel qualified to understand. Morning light slid through the blinds in a way that should have been comforting. Thin and pale and ordinary. My knee was wrapped from thigh to shin. immobilized at an angle that made it feel borrowed. Every pulse sent a dull reminder upward, not sharp anymore, just insistent. I'd been told the words ligament damage and surgery later, and I'd nodded like a person who understood timelines. Eli was 2 rooms down. That was the first thing I asked when I woke up, my throat dry, my voice raspy like I'd been shouting. The nurse, Janice, mid-50s, brisk but kind, told me he had a concussion, a fractured collarbone, and a deep cut that would leave a scar shaped like a crooked parenthesis near his hairline. He keeps asking for you, she said, adjusting the IV. So you're doing something right. Sonia was on another floor. Broken ankle, ribs bruised enough to make breathing painful, but no internal bleeding. Lucky, the doctor had said, which felt like a strange word to use for someone who'd been dragged across a fire escape in winter. A police officer came mid-morning. He was young, early 30s, the kind of tired that looked permanent. He asked me to recount everything slowly. I did. I stuck to facts, sounds, movements. I avoided the moments where my thoughts had raced ahead of reality. When he asked why we went out onto the fire escape, I hesitated. To help a neighbor, I said finally. He nodded, scribbling. Fire escape was condemned last year, he said, not unkindly. Notice should have been posted. I thought of the rust, the way it had complained before it failed. I wondered how many nights it had held simply because nothing had forced it not to. The building manager came next, flustered and pale, apologetic in the abstract way of people worried about liability. He talked about inspections and renovations and unfortunate oversights. I didn't answer most of it. I watched his mouth move and thought about how the courtyard looked from above, how small it had seemed. By afternoon, the adrenaline wore off completely. What was left behind felt heavy and slow. The nurses encouraged me to rest. I stared at the ceiling instead, counting tiny cracks in the paint. Eli was wheeled in just before evening. Seeing him upright, propped awkwardly by pillows, arm in a sling, hit me harder than I expected. Relief arrived late and all at once. Hey, he said, smiling carefully. His eyes were bruised yellow at the edges. Hey, I said back. We sat in silence for a while. It wasn't awkward. It felt earned. I keep replaying it, he said eventually. The moment at the door. I keep replaying the ladder, I said. I knew it was a bad idea. He huffed out a breath that might have been a laugh. I knew looking through the peephole was. We didn't argue about it. There was no point. The choices were already sealed into bone and memory. Sonia visited the next day in a wheelchair, foot elevated, eyes ringed with exhaustion. She hugged me carefully, then Eli, her hands trembling despite herself. They arrested the one who survived, she said quietly. Turns out they'd been doing this for weeks. Buildings with bad locks, waiting for someone to buzz them in. Someone did, Eli said. She nodded. Package delivery earlier that night. Wrong unit, I didn't think. None of us said anything after that. Blame didn't fit neatly anywhere. It just leaked. We were discharged in pieces. Sonia went to her sister's place. Eli and I stayed with a friend until our apartment was cleared structural damage, ongoing investigation, temporarily uninhabitable. All reasonable phrases that didn't quite cover the feeling of being unmoored. Weeks passed. My knee healed slowly, stubbornly. Physical therapy was a small, humiliating grind of exercises that made me sweat and curse under fluorescent lights. Eli went back to work before I did, his sling disappearing, his scar settling into his face like it had always belonged there. At night, we slept with lights on for a while, then lamps, then just the hallway bulb. We found a new place, 3rd floor, solid building. No fire escape outside the bedroom window. The first night there, I lay awake listening to the ordinary sounds of other people living. Footsteps overhead, a muffled TV laugh through the wall, pipes knocking themselves into place. Eli slept quickly, exhaustion finally catching up. I stared at the window across the room. The blinds were brand new, the pull cord straight and still. A car passed outside. Somewhere, a bottle rolled in the gutter and came to rest. I waited for the irrational spike of fear, the sharp intake of breath. It came, but smaller, manageable. I turned onto my side and closed my eyes. Later, maybe minutes, maybe hours, I woke to a sound. A soft click, plastic on glass. I sat up, heart racing, scanning the room. The pull cord swayed gently. The vent beneath the window exhaled warm air, pushing it just enough to tap once more before settling. I exhaled slowly. I lay back down. I did not get up to check. In the morning, sunlight filled the room. Eli made coffee that tasted faintly burned. My knee ached in a way that promised rain later. We talked about groceries, about schedules, about nothing. Outside, the world kept its distance. Mostly. And that's the end of today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more nights full of suspense, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a scare. I've got plenty more stories waiting for you, so stick around and check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you.